Sometimes, reality is far more terrifying than fiction. The story of the Palu family fits this description perfectly, a chain of secrets and terror that remained hidden behind closed doors for years, only to be exposed to the entire nation of Turkey in the final days of 2018. On December 24, 2018, this story appeared on the country's most watched investigative daytime program hosted by MA, and the nation was instantly captivated. What started as a plea to find missing relatives turned into a live broadcast of a horror movie. Let's examine, step by step, how the Palu family, seemingly ordinary from the outside, became the subjects of one of the most disturbing tragedies in modern Turkish history. The Palu family originally hailed from Ordu, but lived in the Körfez district of Kocaeli, an industrial province near Istanbul. The patriarch, Harun Palu, and his wife, Hava, had 5 children: Fatih, Isa, Emin, Maryam, and I. From the outside, they were a tight-knit, extended family. But their destiny changed irreversibly with the arrival of one man, Tuncer Uesdale. Tuncer married the eldest daughter, Emin, and entered the family as a son-in-law. According to allegations, a series of bizarre and dark events began the moment he stepped into their lives. Tuncer quickly seized control of the household. He introduced himself as a Çinci Hoca, a term used in Turkey for a spiritual healer or a medium who claims to communicate with jinns, spirits, or demons. He exploited the family's religious beliefs and deepest fears. He convinced them that they were under a black magic spell and that only he could protect them. By telling terrifying stories of demons and curses, he established a psychological dictatorship over the household. The family members were so influenced by Tuncer's metaphysical threats that they began to see him as a savior. But Tuncer's true goal was much more ruthless: to eliminate anyone who questioned his authority. Tuncer's first target was Ahmet Tanal, the husband of his sister-in-law, Maryam. Tuncer fabricated unimaginable lies about Ahmet, claiming he was forcing his wife, Maryam, into prostitution. He used these lies to provoke Maryam's brother, Isa Palu. The manipulation worked. In 2008, Isa Palu shot and killed his brother-in-law, Ahmet. Since Isa was young at the time, the father, Harun Palu, took the blame to protect his son and went to prison. With the father the only authority figure behind bars, Tuncer gained absolute power. He seized the family's assets, transferring Hava Palu's 5 properties onto his own name. Tuncer kept the family in a constant state of paranoia. He convinced them that the murdered man's relatives were hunting them down. Because of this lie, the family abandoned their homes and lived as fugitives, often sleeping in a car for extended periods. The family members had become slaves to Tuncer's will, too terrified to disobey. But the true horror was reserved for the most vulnerable members of the family. In 2008, shortly after the chaos began, Hava Palu's daughter, Maryam Tanal, mysteriously vanished. Police conducted searches and excavations, but no trace was found. Exactly 1 year later, in 2009, Maryam's young daughter, Melike, also disappeared into thin air. 2 generations a mother and her child were gone. The truth only partially surfaced years later. In 2011, when the grandmother, Hava Palu, gave a chilling statement to the police, she confessed that Tuncer Uesdale had tied Maryam to a tree to punish her. He left her there for days, starving and dehydrated, exposed to the elements. Maryam eventually succumbed to the torture and died. According to the confession, her body was buried by her brother Isa and Tuncer in a desolate area in Kocaeli. The fate of little Melike was even more heart-wrenching. Tuncer claimed the child was possessed by a jinn under the guise of an exorcism. He forced the little girl to drink rubbing alcohol and vinegar. Her small body could not withstand the chemical burns and torture, and she, too, passed away. She was buried in secret, just like her mother. Although the family initially confessed to these crimes in 2011, they later retracted their statements during the trial, claiming they had been coerced by the police. Due to a lack of physical evidence and the changing testimonies, the case went cold. It was shelved as a failure to identify the perpetrators. Until 2018, 10 years after the events, the grandmother, Hava Palu, along with her sons Isa and Fatih, applied to MAS popular TV show. Their stated goal was to find the missing Miriam and Melek. However, this application was essentially the catalyst that reopened the cold case. As the daily live broadcasts continued, the story shifted from a missing person search to a real-life horror show, filled with allegations of sexual abuse, murder, and torture. Tuncer Usdale appeared on live TV, maintaining a cold, arrogant demeanor. He consistently denied the accusations, trying to shift the blame onto the relatives of the man who was murdered years ago. But during the broadcast, a shocking revelation emerged. Miriam's other child, a boy named Recep, had been taken into state protection years prior. Reports surfaced that Recep had given statements describing how his uncle Isa and Tuncer had sexually abused him. These official reports revealed the true depth of the depravity within the household. Cornered by the mounting evidence and questions from MA, Tuncer made an unexpected move on live television. He claimed to know where Miriam was buried and pointed to a specific spot on a map. The police immediately began excavating the area Tuncer had indicated on live TV. The tension reached its peak on January 9, 2019. The public prosecutor's office in Kocaeli treated the on-air confessions and the resurfaced evidence as a criminal complaint. While the show was still broadcasting live, police teams raided the studio. Millions of viewers watched as Tuncer Usdale and his wife, Emin, were handcuffed and taken into custody. Simultaneously, police raided the Palu family home in Kocaeli, arresting the grandmother Hava and siblings Isa and I. For the Palu family, their television journey had ended. Their legal reckoning had begun. During the trial, the family members turned on each other, blaming Tuncer for everything. But the court had seen enough. Tuncer Usdale was sentenced to aggravated life imprisonment for the deliberate killing of Miriam Tonal with monstrous feeling or by causing torment. He also received additional sentences for the murder of the child, Melek, as well as for sexual abuse and deprivation of liberty. The other family members Emin, Hava, Isa, and I were sentenced to 12 years and 6 months each for assisting in the homicide. Fatih Palu, who was a minor at the time of the crimes, received a sentence of 8 years and 4 months in 2023. After an appeals process, the Supreme Court upheld these sentences, sealing the fate of the Palu family. The Palu family case remains etched in Turkey's collective memory, not just for the brutal murders, but as a terrifying example of how manipulation and religious exploitation can drive a family into madness. A man who called himself a healer turned a home into a prison, and a family into accomplices. Years of silence were finally broken on a television screen, proving that no secret stays buried forever. This was the story of the Palu family, a tragedy where the monsters weren't under the bed, but at the dinner table. What you've seen is, unfortunately, just one of the painful truths that we sometimes encounter in this world. On this channel, I'll continue sharing similar real-life stories, cautionary tales, and chilling true cases. If you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and support the video with a comment. See you in the next story. Take care.